The Saga of the Toothpaste Tube. Welcome everyone to another session of Walking with Randy, where we talk about writing, speaking, coaching, marriage, and marketing. Today we're talking again about marriage. Well, we're talking about the Saga of the Toothpaste Tube. When you entered marriage, you probably had high expectations. Maybe you had long conversations before you got married. Maybe you thought you had it all figured out. And then, boom, that's where it hits you. Something comes up that was least expected. Elizabeth was standing in the bathroom, appalled. She liked it squeezed from the bottom. Her idea was that you can get more out of it that way. You can get more of the goodies out of it like that. Well, Ralph evidently did not care about that at all. And there it was, squeezed in the middle. She was appalled at that. But then she calmed down. Okay, our connection is back on. Well, after she calmed down, she thought, well, after all, he is the neat one. In fact, compared to him, I am quite a slob. She laughed about it after she really thought about it. Well, whenever I was preparing for writing the book about overcoming and celebrating your differences in marriage, I did an informal survey. And I found out in that informal, it was not a scientific survey, the sample was relatively small, but it did provide real world experiences. And it was up to date at the time that I wrote the book, and which is still relatively up to date. And we found out in that survey that 26% of the people that were surveyed had a strong preference as to which way the roll of toilet paper was supposed to hang. Was it supposed to hang down from the top in the front, or was it supposed to hang down in the back? Well, 26% of them said they had strong preferences in that regard. And when I do marriage seminars, I often ask that question. And you can see people look at each other, and you can tell the ones that have preferences. At one of our Sunday school dinners, my wife does have a preference. She prefers that it hang from the top down the front. In our case, I didn't have a preference, just as long as it was there. So I just try to do it the way that she wants it. But we had a dinner at church one day, and the roll of paper towels was empty. My wife went over and put on the roll of paper towels hanging down the front. I noticed one of our Sunday school teachers eyeing her as she did that. She walked away. He went over and turned the roll of paper towels around. Evidently, he preferred it to hang down the back. Well, before it was over with, I looked over and it was hanging down the front again. My assumption was that Rhonda had been back to the sink. Well, what differences do you discover in your marriage? They may surprise you, but you will discover them. And now, in the case of the toothpaste tube, I did have a preference with that. I was like Elizabeth. I was like her. I thought you should squeeze it from the bottom. That way that you would get the best out of it. Now, that was back in the days when the toothpaste tubes were like pretty hard aluminum foil tubes, or that's what they look like to me. Anyway, whenever you squeeze them, they just stayed the same shape. Then one of my relatives bought us a thing. It was actually a joke. It was called a marriage saver. And it was like a clothespin that you put on the end of the toothpaste tube, and then you roll it up from the bottom. Well, I like that because that most closely matched my preference. But now, the modern toothpaste manufacturers have done the world a favor. These plastic toothpaste tubes we have nowadays just bounce back into shape, and so it's not as great an issue. Well, you will discover some differences soon after you're married, and how you handle those and learn to cope with those will make a great difference in the world. Well, that's the saga of the toothpaste tube. If you would like to learn more about things like this, you could go look for my books at Amazon.com. You have this one is excerpt from Mountains to Molehills, Overcoming and Celebrating Your Differences in Marriage. When you go to Amazon.com, you can search for Dr. Randy Carney, and you'll find a list of those books. Now, if you'd like more marriage tips like these, go to randysblogs.com. Well, this has been another session of Walking with Randy, although I had to stand in one place because it kept bouncing in and out of the internet signal. But I hope that you have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.